Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing, and this is another episode of Wingin' It. If this is your first time listening, every week I talk to a different business owner, and I am so excited, guys. This week I'm talking to not only a business associate, but somebody I consider a friend. We've been friends for over 2 years now, I think, right, Courtney?
Yeah, I think so.
So Courtney's a just really knowledgeable marketer. She knows a ton about websites. We're going to talk about marketing today, how to clean up your marketing for your construction business. Really excited. I think it's going to be valuable. Courtney, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Thanks for having me.
So, Courtney, give people a little bit about your background. I know that you personally kind of had a lot of touch points with the construction industry. That's why you decided to specialize in working with contractors. So tell people a little bit about kind of that side of your background and your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad was a custom home builder. So I grew up in the construction industry. Creative homes were like a summer vacation because we're like, this is so much fun to do. But we grew up a lot working around my dad's houses. And then my mom ran the business side of his business. And then I got my real estate license when I was 19 and I started working at CBRE, which is a commercial real estate company on an office tenant team. And we did a lot of new construction with that as well. And then I went and worked for Woodside Homes, which is a large production builder in Utah, and was their construction coordinator. So I worked on making sure the houses were ready to go prior to the dig happening. And then I went into work for tech and started my own businesses, did marketing. And then I just was like, why am I not merging the two? Because it is a underserved market and it's something that I'm so familiar with. Have I ever built a house from start to finish? No, but I've been around the trades my entire life. And so it felt like it was something that I was passionate about and also could really help. So it's been so fun to merge the two passions together and really find my niche in the market.
I love it. Yeah. So, you started out in the construction world. Now your specialty is building websites specifically for contractors. And I've loved our conversations in the past. Sometimes we just get to sit and roast websites of people and stuff. So let's go right into it. Let's go red flags. What are some things that you see? If this is on your website, it's probably time to update. What are some indicators that if somebody's watching, they have a website, they're like, man, I should probably update? What are some red flags that should kind of push them over the edge and say, let's really seriously investigate this?
Yeah. Okay. This is so funny because I was just recording content about my website audit checklist, like right before getting on this. So this is a perfect lead in. But I'm constantly redoing people's websites who they're like, we've had it for 10 plus years. And yeah, we've roasted plenty of websites. But I think with contractors, they try and do too much and they hire someone to custom code it, or it's like, this has to be this grand, huge website. But the thing is we want your clients to just understand where you serve, what your specialty is in, and we want to see your photos. One of the biggest red flags is when I go to a contractor's website and it's stock photos. And I'm like, you are such a visual product. And if we can't see what you're doing, you're instantly losing trust. Like people are most likely not even going to reach out to you. I don't care if your photos are terrible, then they're from your phone and the lighting's not great. It's way better than a stock photo that is just people can instantly tell. The other thing is when I go to a website and it's just all copy. I've redone several websites the past few months where it's just straight copy and there's no photos and nobody's going to read your entire website. We put copy on a website because it helps with SEO, which Tommy knows a ton about. And there are people who need to see and they need to also read to understand, but we don't want essays on your pages. So that's never great. The other biggest red flag is when there is no contact information, or it's just like, contact us, but it's like, okay, where is your contact information buried in your site? And the more clients have to search, the less likely they are to go to the next step. So those are some of like the biggest red flags. Also like really slow load speeds. That happens a lot with contractors where I click on their Instagram bio and I'm waiting for like, no joke, 15, 20 seconds for it to load. And it's not mobile optimized and there's white spaces everywhere. And I'm like, you're instantly turning clients away before they even have a chance to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, ton of value there. The biggest one I think that we see a lot when we're doing our audits for SEO is that mobile optimization. This stat is probably 2 years old at this point, but it's something like 85% of web traffic happens on a phone nowadays. And so if your website is not mobile optimized, meaning, if you launched it 10, 15 years ago, then like chances are pretty good it doesn't look good on a modern iPhone. It just doesn't, because the way screens interact with your website has changed and plugins have changed, and like there's a million ways that your website probably looks fine on a computer sometimes, but most of the time it looks terrible on mobile. And so people, like you said, if they're having to hunt around for the information they came and landed on your website for, and they have to feel like they're hunting to find it, they're just going to go to the next person.
Yeah. And there's so many contractors, which is not to like push people away from starting a construction business, but you're not their only option unless you position yourself as their only option. And so it's like, oh, if I come to an electrician's site and it's slow and there's no information for me, I'm just going to go to the next electrician on Google Business. Like I'm not giving you a chance because I don't have the time for that. And so it's, yeah, mobile optimization is huge. And it is the one thing I see that is almost never done on people's websites.
Yeah. And so many people think that it has to, cost a ton of money, or like you said, they have to get this big custom coded website, things like that. So let's kind of talk about that, because I think a lot of people that watch this, they're not doing, 20, 40, $50 million a year. They're in that $1 to $2 to $5 million range, where you really have to watch every single dollar that comes in and out of your business. And so, what should people look out for when they're looking to maybe redo their website? Let's say something resonated in them today and they're like, I know I need to do my website, but I'm going to pull the trigger now. Like if they're looking for somebody to redo it, what are some things that they should keep in mind, price wise or contract wise, things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So couple points that I always hit on is make sure you have full ownership of your website. There are so many contractors, and I don't know if this is just the construction world, that's the ads I get fed, or if it's everywhere, but so often people are like, hey, I'll build your website for free. And then it's only like $90, $100, $200 a month, which sounds great in theory, because in your mind, you're like, oh, a website is $5,000 to $10,000. I don't have that to spend on it, but I can do $200 a month. But once you're in it a year, that's $2,400 for just 1 year of a website, and you don't have any control of it. You have no edit access. They have to do everything. And most of the time, they're not going to get your edits done as quick as you would like them. And so that's a huge thing, is make sure you have full ownership. We are a one-time fee, and whether you work with us or someone else, make sure it's a one-time fee. If they're doing SEO, that is definitely pay that monthly. That's huge. But if they're just like, we're going to manage and maintain your website every month for X amount of money, it's just not worth it. Most contractors only need to update their website 2 to 3 times a year, unless they're doing active SEO and blogs and things like that. So that's one of the biggest red flags, and also making sure you own your domain. The other thing is, I would highly sway people against a custom coded website for a contractor, because they are so hard to edit. You're going to have to pay those edit fees. And like I mentioned, you're going to have new projects rolling in every year that we want to update, even if it's simple as adding it to your gallery, or you have this massive project you just did and you want to highlight it on your homepage. If it's custom coded, it is so much harder to go in and change those photos. There's a lot you can mess up. There's an ad going around. I think it's for a Show It. I think it's a Show It ad where it's like you change one line of code and it's a living room, and then all of a sudden the whole living room's like upside down and the couch is like on its side. And it's hard. Coding is so difficult. And so a lot of people will kind of bash on the drag and drop editors, but like, it's incredible for where they're at today. They have so much potential. And then you have the option to edit your website later on. So those are a couple of the things I would look at, and just making sure you realize that you should not be paying more than, $5,000 would be a pretty custom portfolio based website. You shouldn't be spending much more than that. And that's even on the high end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I would say anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000. That's your more like high end, 4 to 8 pages, somewhere in there. Very, very much like bespoke to you. Might include some good branding, might include, like, it should include all of your SEO setup, things like that. So I think, yeah, that price range is exactly where people want to be looking. I think much less than that, you're usually looking at like a one pager or just not as much effort put into your site, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And then much more than that, you're in the custom coded range, and there's probably better options for where you're at, unless that's what you want. If that's important to you and you're like, we just want our site to look unique to us, we don't want anybody else to ever be able to exactly replicate it, like, custom coded is the way to go, but you're just going to pay for it.
Yeah. And like you said, if you're at 20, 30, 40 million a year, that might be a place where you are ready for that. But I think one big tip too is your website is not set in stone. And so don't hold back. Like, we just launched a template this year to help those smaller businesses overcome that, where it's like, let's get your website up, even if it's B- work. I was actually talking to another partner the other day, and we're like, most construction businesses, if you can just market at an average level, you're way ahead of so many contractors. And so don't be afraid to get something in place, because you can always update it later on. Specifically, if you're just getting started, it's going to be better than, let me wait for a few more years to get that custom coded website, because the jobs you're missing out on are just, it's not worth it at all.
Yeah, for sure. Your website will work for you if done properly. And so it's worth investing, even on the low end, call it a $1,500, $2,000 website. It's worth investing there initially. And then, like you said, in a year or 5 years or whenever it makes sense, you can then upgrade and do that.
Yeah. And I know we've talked a lot about too. I mean, I'm the website person, so that's my whole world. But I do feel like the website is just the foundation of all your marketing, because you can't run ads if you don't have a website, or if you have a website that is just not good, you're running ads into like the trash, basically, because if it can't convert, the ads aren't going to convert either. And then your SEO can't support it. Referrals even look at your website. So there's so much that it's like, that is such a huge foundation for your like for your business. And like you said, $2,500, you can get one job and that will pay it off. And then the website keeps running forever. And so, yeah, there's so many red flags in the industry, but those are going to be my top ones to really look out for when you're hiring.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about SEO. I think that, I don't want to say it's become a buzzword because it's been around forever, but I think a lot of times when you talk to a marketing agency, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do SEO. And that's all that is that they're optimizing your website for search engines. And so what we always tell people is, the person that decorates the house, your interior designer, is usually not the best person to engineer your house, right? Like, they shouldn't be telling you where to put a load-bearing wall. And that's kind of the same with a lot of web design. Like, what you do is you make the website look good, function well, it's a good sales engine, things like that, but you're not there necessarily to do as much on the optimization side, like as far as a long-standing thing goes. So your SEO person should, also look at the meta tag, should look at the things behind the pictures and your page tags, all of those things, and potentially do some blogs. Blogs are great right now for AI, because AI will, like, Google Gemini above everything else right now. If your blog is relevant to what somebody searches, it will pull data from your blog and then give you credit on the very side. And so really, like, you're one of the first organic people that pops up. And so I think that there's so much potential there right now that's being missed out on in the industry, because they're paying SEO people to not really do their site, because once the H1 tags and stuff are in place, there's not a whole lot of work that they need to do in their minds.
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone about this today because, like you said, SEO is such a buzzword. And I really do think SEO is so important. I think there's a time and a place for it. But I also feel like in construction, like everyone's just like, well, I just need SEO. And it's like, okay, do you realize though, especially in construction, because there's so much, it could be 12 to 18 months before you really start seeing the benefits of that. And they're like, oh, I thought it was just an automatic thing, you know? So it's so like, it's pushed so heavily. And I love how you talk about we do this really well where it's like your lane is ads and SEO, my lane is marketing. Because when people say I can do it all, I get red flags because I'm like, I know you can't do all of it well and stay on top of the trends for everything. And so, yeah, SEO has just become something that I'm like, it is so important, but do you actually know what it is? Or are you just falling into the buzzword where something else could actually be more beneficial, like optimizing your Google business page and then utilizing your website as a backbone for that? So that's something that is always on my mind because SEO is just like the thing right now.
Yeah. Well, and just like for general contractors, you hire people to do concrete, you hire people to do electrical work, you hire people for HVAC work, because you as the GC, you can't do everything. Or even if you have things that you're like, hey, I feel pretty confident in these parts, there are parts that you're weak in. And so that's the same reason that you know, either hire a full agency where there's multiple people working on these different parts of the project, or you bring in different freelancers or different people into an in-house marketing team to say, hey, this is what I want you to do. I talked to somebody that he ended up leaving this job, but he was the marketing director for a construction and HVAC company. And the guy was like, he didn't have any budget because he's like, well, you do the marketing, you're the marketing director. And he tried to tell his boss that's not really how it works. Like, I can oversee pieces of the marketing I'm good at. I can do email newsletters, I can do the websites, I can do social media. Like, these are the things I love doing. But if you want me to do 40 hours in those things that I'm really good at, I won't have time for ads, I won't have time for graphic design, I won't have time for SEO, I won't have time for these other tasks, slide decks, and other preparations for trade shows, like all of those things that go into marketing, that you need to create an extra budget for those things or figure out ways to hire people part-time or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and even as you're like spitting all those out, I'm like, oh, for someone who's brand new, marketing feels so overwhelming because there's so many moving pieces to it. And like you said, even, I mean, I think for both of us, we could manage all the things if we wanted to. It just would not be at the level that we expect from ourselves. And so I think that as you're starting your construction business or as you're starting to grow it, take one piece at a time. Like, unless you have a massive budget to go all in with everything, take it one piece at a time because it's impossible. Like you're saying with that guy, like it's impossible to be like, I'm going to do the ads, the SEO, the newsletters, the trade show, the graphic design, the content, the website. Like it's so much, but that is where you want to get to. So you just kind of do one piece to get it there. Right.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, with that, let's talk about, hey, you're on a budget, you're small, you're starting out, you're in that kind of $1 to $2 million a year mark, really growing, wanting to start investing in marketing but don't know where. Like, for you, when if people come to you in that situation, I know they do often, what are your recommendations? Where do you start? What does your audit look like? What does that process look like for you, and what sorts of recommendations do you start to make?
Yeah, I think there's probably the top four things that I look for. A lot of times they'll have a brand and a logo. It might not be like, a fully custom done, but it's good enough and it looks good. You can always upgrade them if you need, but we want to make sure you at least have brand colors and a logo because we want repetition. And so starting there. And then I always make sure people have a Google business profile. I do that even before a website. I have many clients who are like, well, how do I start collecting reviews? I'm like, let's do it on your Google business profile. And then we don't even have that. And so I'm like, that is such an important piece because that is, I think most of the time where people are going to go to be like plumbers in whatever area. So that's my first thing is like, the second thing, like, let's make sure you're on Google Business. And then I kind of, in my world, tie together a website and Instagram to kind of figure out where they're ready for next. If people absolutely have $0 for a budget, I will say, let's get started at least on Instagram and link a form or your phone number so that they can get in touch with you and you can start posting your projects to get in the habit of it. Because at least you can share that Facebook or Instagram to your Google Business Review if you have $0. You're just like, I don't know what to do. They're all free to do. You can get started. And then my next recommendation is a website, just to start really showcasing your work. And I always tell people your website is basically your resume. And so let's build your website for the business that you want. Most of the time when they're just getting started, they're like, I've been taking oddball jobs like here and there, and my schedule is busy, but I'm not doing what I want. And it's because nobody knows what they actually do. They haven't created a name for themselves. And so that's where I think the website really comes in to strategize, like, what are your top services? What are your areas? What do you want to be known for? So you're not just another general contractor. You are someone who's specialized in these type of projects. And then from there is where we can layer in the SEO and the ads, whether that's on Google or Instagram and Facebook, newsletters, lead magnets, like we can start piling that on. But I just don't feel like any of that can happen until that foundation of those four things is really in place to build off of.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Those are the areas that we look at as well. Like you said, having a good semi-recognizable logo, having that branding is so important, because if the colors on your Google business page and your website and your Instagram are different, nobody's going to know that it's a brand. Right? They're not going to think, oh, these things are tied together. There's no through line there. And so I think absolutely that's exactly the right place to start. And then Google Business, like you said, free to set up, free to optimize. We recommend posting once per week whenever you can, keep people up to date, put your projects on there, things like that. And I mean, that's a service we offer, and we've seen huge growth just from that in smaller markets where they're less competitive. It's gotten people off of the 7th page of Google and into the first one just by like posting regularly on their Google business profile.
Yeah, that's so cool, because it is like, I totally get I'm working a 9 to 5 right now, and starting a construction business is very like overhead intensive. Like, it's not like an online business. Like for Tommy or I, it's like, oh, we can start the business with basically $0, and we can put that money into our marketing and websites a little bit more. But for a construction business, you do need the trucks and the tools, and there's just a lot more. And so it's so cool that you guys have so many free resources between Google and social media, and like, utilize them and create that brand. It gets so boring. I always tell people, like, you're going to feel so bored of your colors and your logo and your font within like a couple months of posting. But we need that like brand recognition everywhere, because we don't want people wondering like, oh wait, is this the same person that I got the business card for? It looks different. Like, what's going on? But yeah, Google Business, guys, I'd probably put it above a website if you have no marketing budget, because it's just such a great free tool.
It is. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think tons of good information there. So when you go beyond that kind of initial phase, once you're out of the like, hey, we're just starting up, let's say you're into the kind of $1.5 to $5 million range, like you're feeling comfortable, you're ready to invest more. What do you see what are the mistakes a lot of people make in that kind of range?
Yeah, I think it goes back to spending the money in the wrong place, right? Like okay, so many options, so many words going through my head right now, but I think it kind of depends where you started out, right? If when you started, you're like, I did invest in a brand and I invested in a $2,500 website, you're probably good to keep just going with that. And you're going to want to put more money into ads at that point, or into your Google business profile, SEO, etc., or maybe hiring someone to do content. So if I think a lot of times we get stuck in this marketing like loop of, oh, I need to redo this again, and I need to redo this again, and I need to redo this. And sometimes the foundation is actually good. You just need to start adding into it. I always give the analogy of like, your business is a house in the middle of the woods. And as you start adding like more roads to it, more people can find you. So it's like your website is one road, your social media is the next, ads are the next, SEO, referrals, joining HBAs, like anything you start doing is adding more visibility to your house or your business. And so the other route is if you are up to that 1.5 to 5 million and you're like, okay, we actually just kind of DIY'd our website, we DIY'd our brand and logo. That's when it would be the time to be like, okay, let's get like a custom brand, a custom logo. Let's go through a rebrand. Let's rebuild a website so that then once we get that $5 to $10 million and we have this extra money, then we can start layering in the ads and SEO. So I think that I've found it myself, like you get caught as a business owner in the visuals. So it's like, how can I redo this? When a lot of times it doesn't need to necessarily be redone. And I'm upfront with people about that. I'll be like, your website's actually pretty good. Let's just revamp it a little bit and move on. And you don't always need a redo. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
It does. Yeah. Like you said, I think a lot of times people go to a website person or, a marketer in general, and a lot of times it's kind of a nail and hammer situation. Like they're going to look at your site and say, hey, we specialize in websites, so you need a new website. And sometimes that is the case. And sometimes it's like, no, like, if you're getting leads from your website, probably don't touch it, honestly. Like that's truly how I feel about it.
Yeah. And it gets to be simple. Like, I really don't think, a lot of website developers are like, we have the most complex system for you and all the fancy features. And it's like, it doesn't always need that. And like Tommy was saying, like, if you're producing leads, I have a website I built 2 years ago. We have not touched it. And he is continuously bringing in leads just from pretty much referrals, and then they go to his website, see his work, and book him. And his website could use updating. Like, I've learned a lot in the past few years. He's done a bunch of projects, but it's working. And so he's just like, I'm booked for the summer. I don't really care about it, like it's working. But yeah, I've had clients. I had one client in particular. They came to me and they're like, we want our website redone. And I said, your website actually looks great. Like, why are we redoing it? And they're like, we just really want it redone. We like what you do. We want a new website. And I said, okay, that's fine. Like, let's move forward as long as I'm being upfront that you don't need it. And that was probably 2 years ago. And then about 6 months ago, they're like, oh, we're redoing our website again. And I'm like, you guys are just trapped in this. If we just do this better, even though there's all this other stuff missing, but they're like, we're just going to try this new thing and this new thing. And so I would just advise people to not get caught in that in marketing, because it can feel like there's always a new thing and a new magic bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. With that client that you're talking about, something that came to my mind is a lot of times with marketing, it feels like it's hard to know when to invest, because you either feel like, oh, I'm so busy right now, I'm so slammed, I couldn't take on more work if I tried, or it's the middle of winter and you're like, this is when I should be marketing, but I don't have any money. Right.
Yeah.
And so like something that we always tell people is like the right time to start marketing, the best time to start marketing is 6 months ago, and the next best time is now. Like, really and truly, that's how I feel. And I talked to on my podcast a few weeks ago. They're doing $15 million. They're a roofing an exterior company, and he said the only way they survived the recession of 2008 was because they took out lines of credit and continued to market on those lines of credit. And so and that was before they'd hit, $10 million. They were building their business in that time. And so for me, what that reminded me is marketing done right will make you money. And so the best time to start marketing really is when you're so busy. You're like, I don't know how I could handle more leads. That is a systems problem. Like, that is I need to stretch my business. I need to hire in the right positions. I need to do those things because, like for me, I kind of treat marketing as like paying for gas in your car. It's an essential part of your business. And so I have a hard time when people are like, oh, I don't think now's the right time to market. It is. It probably is. If you have cash on hand right now that can make you more cash, now is the time to market. So I don't know. I get off my soapbox and let you talk, but what are your thoughts with that? Do you have any other thoughts that go along with that?
No, I totally agree with that. And I think as business owners, I'm going to throw my husband under the bus for a second, but it's fine.
He's
He,
not going to watch this. It doesn't matter.
well, yeah, it's fine. Hopefully, I just won't tell him when it comes out. No, he really struggles with marketing because he's like, oh, but I could use that money towards something else. And in the beginning, I'm a huge fan of you do not need to spend $1,000, like thousands of dollars a month on marketing when you're just getting started. There's a lot you have to put your time in. You're either doing time or money, but when you're just getting started, you have a lot of time. So it's like there's things you can do. But yeah, my husband's one where he's like, I don't want to spend like the little bit of money and the time on it because what if it doesn't work? And I think marketing is just a huge science experiment. So when you are busy, that is the best time to be working on it because you don't need the leads then. It's more of let's get this going, let's get this figured out. And there are plenty of people who are like, I actually don't need this done. This happens with me all the time with websites. I'm sure it is with you where they're like, we're just really starting this process and I'm not really going to be working on this for like a month or two. And it's like that with construction as well. Just because you start doing your marketing today doesn't mean you're going to get 500 leads tomorrow, but they might start filtering in over the next few months. And I get that too with websites where it's like, well, we're busy right now, so I don't need it right now. And it's like, hey, but you have the money right now, so let me just handle it for you. And it will be ready when you do slow down because it's such a cycle, especially with construction. You're always going to have those busy and slow seasons. And maybe you're not making as much on your projects in the slow season because you're paying more for marketing, but you're still staying busy. You're still providing for your team. Your business is still growing. And I think that's a lot of things people forget about.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. I have talked to several construction businesses that they're like, yeah, I lay off my guys and they go on unemployment for 2 or 3 months. I try to keep them on through Christmas, and then after Christmas, they're off for 2 months or 3 months, whatever that looks like. And it's like, man, that just stinks. You're literally cutting off 30% of your business essentially by saying, oh, we're just not working for 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
and like, there's so many marketing things you can do that will start compounding now, like you can start doing these little things, specifically social media. It's not going to work tomorrow. Social media is a long-term game, but if you can sit on your lunch break and wait for your food to get out that you just ordered, like you can post something really quick. And there's just little safety nets that you can start building in today. And I love how you said like the best time to start was 6 months ago and the next best time is today. I think it was Alex Ramosi actually posted something today or yesterday that was like, if you keep saying I'll do it tomorrow, that's just like the worst thing you can ever do for your business because it will always be tomorrow and it will always be the next day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Courtney, this has been really, really valuable. I mean, tons of great insights. Thanks so much for your time, for sharing your experiences, things like that. The last question I always like to ask people is, what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever been given, and how did you implement it into your business?
Oh, I love that. I think the biggest one is just never quit on your worst day. And I think that is so true for any business owner because you feel like you're like, "Oh, my marketing didn't work today. I'm going to give up on it. Or my content didn't do it well today. I'm going to give up on it." And it's like, don't just quit your entire business, but don't quit the individual things as well. Quit when you get your worst day because at one point your ads are going to perform. Your website's going to perform. Your marketing is. Once you're strategic with it, it's all going to work. But just like, don't quit on those bad days or when you have one failed little thing because it will work.
Yeah. I heard something recently that I really liked. It was a book about mindset called The Jackrabbit Factor. And they talked about like you expect good things to happen as you go into those new things. And so, it talked about when you're pregnant, you're expecting a baby. And so just because you go 2 days over your due date, that you're not like, oh, I'm not pregnant anymore, I guess. Like you're still expecting a baby. That baby is coming. And so you have to go into the especially marketing, but I mean every part of business. You have to go in expecting this is going to work. This is what it's going to feel like when it does work. this is what I'm going to do when it works. I'm going to, whether it's I want to buy myself this car or this piece of equipment. I want to take my wife on this date or this vacation. Like whatever that thing is, you get in that mode and then you expect it. And whether that thing comes on the timeline that you say or not, like you're still expecting. It's like, okay, just because it's 3 months later, I expected it was going to happen and it happened. And I loved that wording. It was something I never considered. And so I like what you're saying. Like, don't give up just because the first or second or fifth iteration didn't work, because it will work. It's not that it just doesn't work. You have to work at it and let it go and keep trying, give it iterations, and then eventually you'll find the thing that works for you.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. And I think for contractors too, it's like you're already so skilled at what you do. You're just learning the rest of this. So like, let it take some time. Let it not be perfect. Your work is perfect. The rest will kind of catch up to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you're probably watching. You want to feel like you're winging it less. So you're watching, hopefully, people that know what the heck they're talking about, or at least a little bit. You're here to learn, you're doing the right thing. And so like place some confidence in that. Place the knowledge that I know what, I'm expecting my business to grow. I'm strengthening the things I don't know. You learned a lot about marketing today. Hopefully some things that you can put into practice in the next week or two. Because really, like, these are foundational things that will absolutely work. They'll build your business and they'll get you to those places that you want to go.
Yeah, I love it. This has been great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Thanks for your time, Courtney. This was fun. It's a good excuse to catch up. We'll definitely catch up more off camera. So I'm looking forward to that too.
So fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more today that help you feel like you're winging it just a little bit less. And we'll be here next week with a different business owner. So we'll talk to you then.